Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 1 of Anatomy and Physiology Fundamentals. We're going to get into the basic structure and function of the human body in this chapter. We're going to talk about the different organ systems and how those organ systems work together. And we're going to finish up talking about the language of anatomy and how we maintain homeostasis. So it'll be pretty fun today. Anatomy, in a nutshell, is the study of the structure of the body. So when we're talking about human anatomy, we're talking about the study of the structure of the human body. And this is not just the, let me just go to this picture. There we go. It's not just the large, gross structures that you can see, but also smaller structures like the structure of the cell that makes up these large observable structures. Make sense? And so when we look at microscopic anatomy, we're looking at things that we would have to use a microscope to see. So that's why it's called microscopic anatomy. So both the digestive system as a whole, the large stomach and everything, the mouth, the intestines, which are considered gross structures, they're composed of these tiny little microscopic structures called cells. And these cells are what actually do work in the digestive system. So let's talk about physiology. Physiology is how things work in the body. So whereas in anatomy, we're looking at the structures and how those structures are put together. In physiology, we're looking at what the function is of those structures. So how those structures work and work together. So here are those same cells that are found in the digestive system, but now instead of looking at just the structure of the cell, now we're looking at how do those cells work. So we have these different parietal cells and we have chief cells. Well, they work together to break pepsinogen, which is an inactive protein, into pepsin, which then can break down the different proteins that enter our stomach. So I always use this statement in my A&P classes because it's so important. Anatomy and physiology are integrated. They go hand in hand. You cannot understand anatomical structures, or you cannot learn, I should say, anatomical structures, and then later on learn their physiology. When you learn the structure, you need to learn the function at the same time. The structure determines the function. So if the structure changes, if something changes within the physical structure, then that function can also change. So I like this picture. I found it on Google Images. It's a picture of three people, I'm sorry, moving a wagon full of what looks like wheels. So when you're looking at this, you see that these wheels are very square. Well, their structure doesn't really work with what the function's supposed to be. The wheels should be nice and round like this, and then pulling or pushing on this wagon would be a lot easier. So structure determines function. You should say it, you should write it, you should learn it. It's very important, okay? Another way to say that is function follows form. And so here's an example. The air sacs of our lungs have very thin walls. They're very thin because their function is for diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So if they were thick, if they were nice and thick, it would be a lot harder to allow gas exchange with our blood. But their function is to exchange oxygen to the blood and carbon dioxide to the lungs, or to move, I should say. So their structure is very thin. We don't have very thin cells making up our skin. And the reason for that is because our skin is more prone to abrasion than our alveoli in our lungs. Make sense? Or the air sacs in our lungs. So at this point, if you are following along with your study guide, which I always think people should do, because I do answer these questions, you should be able to answer the first question, what is anatomy? The second question, what is physiology? And the third question, how are those two terms related to each other? Let's get into levels of organization. So all living things are organized. Whether you are a bacterial cell or a human being, you are organized. And the organization level starts with the chemical or atomic level. So we have atoms that make up the different chemicals that make up macromolecules that eventually make up those cells. The cell is the basic unit of life. Cells come together forming tissues. Tissues of different types come together forming organs. Organs that have similar functions come together and produce organ systems, and then all the organ systems can produce the organism. So here's that initial level of organization, the chemical level of organization, atoms, producing these molecules which produce eventually the macromolecules that help make up the cell, which is the basic unit of life. So the first living structure is the cell. Anything before the cell is non-living. Cells of the same type form these tissues, and tissues then form, tissues come together and they form organs. So we have epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and connective tissue all coming together. Organs come together and form organ systems. So in this case, we have the cardiovascular system, we have blood vessels, we have the heart, all working together. And then you take all those organ systems and you produce the organism. And so humans have 11 organ systems that we put together. So now you should be able to answer the question about what are the 6 levels of organization. And with that, you should also be able to tell me the level of organization that is considered living. Let's look at those 11 organ systems I just talked about. The first organ system that you will learn about is the integumentary system. The integumentary system includes the skin, hair, nails. The skin is the major organ, hair and nails, as well as exocrine glands. All are structures found within the integumentary system. And they're part of the integumentary system, but the major organ is the skin. The integumentary system has a lot of functions, including, but not limited to, it protects us from external damage. So think of UV radiation, chemical damage, microbial invasion. Our skin is the first line of defense. Our skin helps to produce vitamin D, which we need to grow strong bones. Our skin also functions in maintaining the temperature balance in our body. And so those are some of the major functions of our skin, but our skin is also the first organ system that people see, so we can learn a lot about an individual just by looking at their skin. Are you healthy? Are you sick? It's the first thing that people are going to see when they look at a patient in a hospital or a doctor's office. Is that skin and the hair? Are you having a bad hair day? Those are things that we're going to be able to identify right away. The next organ system is the skeletal system. This consists of all of the bones of our body and has accessory organs such as cartilage, ligaments, and joints. And joints really aren't organs. Joints are just areas where those bones come together. The function of the skeletal system is to provide the attachment for muscles so that we can move our entire body, protection from protection of our soft internal organs. Bones are the site of blood cell formation, so all blood is formed in the red bone marrow of spongy bone. And bone also stores a lot of minerals, nutrients, fat for use if we need them. The muscular system consists of all of the muscles that attach to our bones. So when we think of muscular system, we are looking at the skeletal muscle that's attached to our bones and allows for movement of the entire body as a whole. But we will talk about the cardiac muscle and smooth muscle as well when we talk about the muscular system. The nervous system, this is one of our two control centers. Nervous system is the fast-acting control center, and it consists of the brain and spinal cord as our CNS, and then all of the nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord consists of the PNS, or are found within the PNS. The function is to take in information and determine how to respond. So it's a very fast-acting control center. Our second control center is the endocrine system. Consists of multiple endocrine glands, including thyroid gland, thymus gland, adrenal gland, as well as certain organs that are both endocrine and have exocrine functions, like the pancreas, testes, and ovaries. The function, it's a slower acting control system. They secrete chemical messages called hormones into the blood, but the response is a lot longer lived than your nervous system. So the endocrine system helps to determine growth, reproduction, as well as metabolism of the body as a whole. Cardiovascular system includes the heart and all of the blood vessels. It is the transportation network of the body, so it takes in oxygen and nutrients and then moves them to the different cells of the body that need them, and then gets rid of waste products, moving those to our digestive or urinary systems or to our skin to be released. The lymphatic system is a series of vessels that run very closely with our blood vessels. Lymphatic organs, including your lymph nodes, your spleen, the thymus, again, is also a lymphatic vessel or lymphatic organ, as well as an endocrine organ. I should have mentioned that before. Functions to house your white blood cells associated with immunity, your B and T lymphocytes, as well as some other white blood cells like macrophages, and allows them to interact with potential pathogens so that they can then elicit an immune response. The lymphatic system also returns fluids back to the bloodstream that have left the bloodstream. And in doing so, the lymphatic system moves those fluids through the different organs and nodes, making sure that there's no potential pathogens. So it's always testing all of our fluids to make sure that we are healthy. The respiratory system, which includes our lungs, our trachea, our nasal cavity, all function in bringing in oxygen, which we need to survive. We need oxygen to produce ATP in a process known as aerobic cellular respiration. And we get rid of waste product called carbon dioxide, which is also produced during aerobic cellular respiration. The digestive system starts at the oral cavity, moves through the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestines, and the rectum and anus. The digestive system has the major organs, which I just named, which are part of what we call the GI tract, and then accessory organs like teeth and tongue and pancreas and liver that help in aiding with the breakdown of the food and absorption of nutrients. The urinary system, one of our smallest organ systems when you think about it, but super important, consists of 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, a bladder, and 1 urethra. That's it. But the function is huge. We're constantly filtering our blood, cleaning our blood, getting rid of waste products, and helping to maintain acid-base balance, regulating water balance, and maintaining blood pressure. So our urinary system is a very important organ system. And then we have 2 reproductive systems. We have a male and a female reproductive system consisting of the major organ of reproduction. For the males, that would be the testes. For the females, that would be the ovaries. A series of ducts or tubes, and some accessory structures that are needed to reproduce. So the male reproductive system consists of the testicles, which sit inside of a scrotal sac that hangs out side of the body so that our testes can stay cooler than body temperature, because sperm can't be produced at that high of a temperature. We have accessory glands, seminal vesicles, prostate glands, and Cowper's glands that help in producing semen, and a penis that delivers the sperm into the vagina. Female reproductive system then consists of the ovaries, the uterine tubes that the ovaries produce the egg, secrete the egg into the uterine tubes then deliver the egg to the uterus. It's in the uterine tubes where fertilization will occur, if it will occur. And then in the uterus, that's where we would implant the egg if fertilization occurs. We have the vaginal canal, which is the site for copulation with the male. It is the passageway for menstrual cycle. It's also the birth canal when you are giving birth. So there's a lot of functions in the reproductive system that we'll talk about, and structures, and we'll talk about babies being born. So not only intercourse, but also the development of that new child, okay? And so I mentioned all these organ systems, but the organ systems don't work independently of each other. They all work together. So we need to take in nutrients through the digestive system. Those nutrients wouldn't be beneficial unless they could get to our cells. And it's moving those nutrients into the blood that allows us to get the nutrients to the different cells. The respiratory system also brings in nutrients, oxygen, and gets rid of waste products. And again, our cardiovascular system is what takes in those nutrients and gets rid of waste. So all the waste products are then going to be filtered back out either into the digestive or into the urinary system, depending. And the nutrients themselves are going to go to the body cells that we need them at. And so all of our organ systems really function together. I'm just showing a few of them right here in this figure, but all of our organ systems work together to maintain homeostasis of the organism, the human. So I'm going to stop this video now, but at this point you would also be able to answer questions 5 through 7 on the study guide, knowing the 11 different organ systems, knowing the functions of them, and the structures that make them up. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.